Were the Hexham Heads cursed relics from Britain's Celtic past? Symbols of head magic and sacrifice? Or were they just modern fakes? Objects that became haunted because people believed they were. Tonight on Let's Get Haunted, we're unearthing the legend of the Hexham Heads. The cursed stones that brought a quiet English neighborhood to its knees, and the lingering question they left behind. When you dig something up from the past, how long before it starts to dig back?
Welcome back to Let's Get Haunted with your hosts,
Nat
and Aly.
Welcome back, Haunties, to episode 244 of Let's Get Haunted. Aly, go ahead and explain what our show is for anyone who's tuning in for the first time and wanting to get haunted.
Hi, new haunties. First of all, welcome to our show. We are so happy to have you. If you're stumbling across this for the very first time, you may be confused and you might need a primer. So I'm Aly, that's Nat, and together we have this podcast. We are on season number 7, so we've been doing this a while, okay? And the way that our show works is we take turns. Every week, we rotate, telling each other a spooky story from around the world. The person telling the story is the only person who knows what the topic is going to be. So I am just here to listen along with all of you for the very first time and provide commentary. And hopefully I'm going to ask some of the questions that might come up for you as you're listening to this topic. So I just heard Nat's intro here, that hook. And all I know is that there's a head. There's some sort of Celtic head involved in the story. I've never heard of this topic before. I'm very excited to learn about it. And before we dive into it, I did just want to say a quick piece of housekeeping, which is that if you have not heard, we restocked our merch store and then we forgot to tell you guys about it. So the only people who have figured it out are in the Patreon or follow us on Instagram. So it's time that we let the rest of you know that if you head over to letsgethaunted.com right now, you can find some very cool new exclusive merch. We have an awesome shirt that I'm actually wearing right now, but it's freezing as fuck in this studio.
Oh my God, show it off. It's called the GTFO Out of My Room Mom shirt. And as you can see there, it is a beautiful metal head sort of graphic of Let's Get Haunted that a fan drew for us. And so that is pretty cool. Literally haunty art.
So good.
And yeah, you could have your own piece of history, guys, that also says to other people, get the fuck out of my room, Mom. Like, we all need a shirt that says that. You know what I mean? A little dark-sided.
Mom, you just don't get it. You don't understand my interest in the paranormal. You never will. Get out of my fucking room.
Get the fuck out of my room and play Minecraft!
We also have a plushie for the very first time that Nat worked very hard on. She custom created it with a stuffed animal maker. It comes on a cute little keychain, and it's just very cute. It's a little mole.
It's so cute, guys. It's a mole, and it's so cute. It's a mole, and it has like a little tail, a little butt, and he's just so fucking eager. That's what I love about him. He's just standing there, and he's like, with his little fucking claws and his little face, and he's just like, let me at him, let me dig it up, whatever it's gonna be, I'm ready, you know? And I just love it. For those of you guys who know the inside scoop, we've got moles. We got moles in our podcast, you guys, and we can't go too deep into it because of the said moles, but the only way to, I guess profit off of the moles is to literally have our moles. So mole check. If you've got a mole, you can be trusted. If you don't have a mole, you might be the mole. You guys, I don't make the rules, okay? It makes sense when you don't think about it.
Yeah, the TLDR is basically that we had some people join our Patreon this year who were preying on our downfall, and they joined just to get insider knowledge and inside scoop, and there were multiple moles, so you're not going to guess who it was, although we did publicly out one of them in the Patreon this year. Go back! figure out who it was. But yeah, we've had like 5 or 6 moles this year, and not sure what the obsession is, but we decided to profit off of it financially. So head over to letsgethaunted.com, pick up your plushy mole, pick up your Get the Fuck Out of My Room Mom t-shirt, and pick up the mole sticker that says I am not the mole. And if you don't buy the sticker, we have no choice but to think you're the mole. With all that being said, it's time to get into today's very spooky story. Episode 244. I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me about some Celtic heads, Natalia.
I'm so excited to. I also want to give a special thank you to Revo Shandor 420 who recommended this episode via Reddit. All right, guys, put your panties up wherever they're gonna go, because they're gonna fall down at this beautiful thing that I've written here. All right.
I thought you just meant like wave your panties in the air in celebration for this episode.
Or do that. I don't know. I just wanted to say something provocative.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
Okay. The unearthing. Almost 50 years ago, it was the spring of 1971 in the quiet town of Hexham, Northumberland. Hexham, an affluent historic market town nestled on a gentle hill overlooking a river, is famously next to Hadrian's Wall. Cobblestone streets wound past busy coffee shops and cafes beneath the shadow of a medieval abbey, its soaring arches and time-worn masonry whispering tales of monks, raids, and royal intrigue. At dusk, lamplight catches fogged window panes, and the air carries the weight of generations. With origins stretching back to the 7th century, Hexham was the type of town authors used as settings in their novels. But for the family who called 3 Reed Avenue home, Hexham was just a collection of quiet brick houses, rolling hills, and foggy fields, until this particular afternoon. 2 brothers, 11-year-old Colin and 9-year-old Leslie Robson, dug through the dirt while their mother made a cup of tea inside. Clunk. Their shovel struck something solid. The boys unearthed 2 small stones, each one about the size of a tennis ball. Upon closer inspection, the boys realized the stones had eyes and mouths. These fist-size rocks were actually roughly carved heads with faces. The rudimentary carved heads had stumpy necks, as if they had once been attached to something larger. The smaller stone, with a flat smile, thumbhole eyes, and stripes for hair, wore a slightly melancholy face. This stone was called the Boy. But the other stone was darker and larger, with bulging eye sockets and a slack-jawed mouth that made the face appear to be in agony or ecstasy. Because of this ominous expression, this stone was called the Witch. That evening, the family placed the peculiar faces on the mantelpiece, harmless souvenirs from the soil. But that night, the air in the Robson house changed. Legends say the heads rotated to face the spot they had been unearthed from in the garden. A toy car rolled across the floor on its own. And from the corner of the room, one of the stone faces seemed to turn, ever so slightly, towards the sound of the car rolling across the floor. Then, the noises started. Footsteps pacing upstairs while everyone was asleep. The creak of something heavy pressing against the walls. Nothing that couldn't be explained, of course, by old foundations or homes in need of repair. Until, next door, a scream was scrumped. The youngest of the Dodd family, 10-year-old Brian swore to his mother he felt ghostly hands pulling his hair.
Ew.
Miss Dodds calmed the boy's fears by telling him he just had a nightmare and ghosts weren't real. But that night, Miss Dodds peered into the darkness in horror. She had woken to find a half-man, half-beast standing at the foot of her bed. The creature in question bore eyes like yellow glowing coals, gazing with an inhuman hunger at the meaty lumps of flesh beneath Mrs. Dodds' nightie.
Ew.
At first, Mrs. Dodds thought it must be a trick of the shadow, a play on her mind, as no man nor beast had entered her bedroom since she took her last lover, Ricardo, 7 years ago.
Is this made up?
Ricardo, my dear, have you returned to make love once again as we did all those years ago? The beast did not reply except for a low growl followed by the sound of labored breathing, as if he was restraining his urge to devour her whole. As Miss Dodds leaned over to retrieve her glasses off the nightstand, the beast man stepped forward into a ream of moonlight, revealing he was covered in a thick pelt of black fur. Mrs. Dodds gasped in ecstasy as a hairy man reached forward and grazed her leg with his hand. But as her eyes traced the arm back to its owner, she screamed as she realized this was no man. This was a goat man. When the creature fled, it left a trail of wet footprints down the stairs and the faint smell of soil. Aly, some of that was a little embellished, but the majority of it was part of the legends. Okay, so the part about Ricardo, I took some liberties with that. But
Bro,
Mrs. Dodds,
this is 100% you just writing furry fan fiction and testing the waters to see what percentage of our audience is interested so that you can publish a digital book to Amazon.
that's actually like a great idea. Do you think like should I do that? Do people make money doing that?
I couldn't tell you. I know that there's a
They just do it for
big
the sport.
market. Yeah, just do it for the love of the game. You know, you've got a furry mask in your house. I know you put it on sometimes just to feel alive. Run your fingers through the fur.
Dude, what do you think of that story though? You forgot all of it except for the part about the goat man?
Yeah. Okay, so tell me if I've got this right, because since we do record this show remotely, sometimes stuff cuts or is delayed. So am I hearing correctly that there were two young boys under the age of 14 that are digging in their backyard and they come across these pebbles, and at first they think they're just rocks, and then they flip them over and they realize that it's carved faces in the rocks, and then they bring them inside. The family looks at them together. They're like, that's weird. And then they stick them on the mantelpiece, and now their house is getting haunted.
That is exactly what happened. Yeah, they find these rocks, and, you know, at first they're just like, whatever, you know, they just put them inside because it's like you find something cool, you bring it inside.
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
like weird haunted stuff starts to happen. You know, your usual haunts, right? Weird footsteps, walls creaking, things moving around, whatever. But
then it culminates with a furry coming in with wet feet.
yeah. So then next door, like the little boy that lives next door to them says that he felt ghostly fingers moving through his hair, and the mom's like, no, you're fine, it's chill or whatever. But then she said, hey, no, actually, a goat man appeared in my bedroom.
Whoa.
And it was just too good not to embellish it a little bit. You know, like with a canvas. It was a blank canvas, guys. I can't help myself, okay? I see possibilities where other people see none. I'm going to show you some pictures of these stones because this actually gets kind of haunted.
Yeah, I really do want to see pictures of this because I'm trying to figure out in my mind, like, is this just a rock that kind of looks like it has a face, or is this full on carved out? They eat beans.
Okay, here is
Ew!
a newspaper clipping.
That is dark-sided. That is dark-sided. That, I don't even know what... First of all, boy on the right looks so suspicious. He looks like he carved this abomination and knows something the other brother doesn't know. Look at him. He's got a little smirk. Like, maybe the goat man has possessed him to, like, carve these... I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. These are fucked up. So if you're not looking at the video version of this episode, which you can watch on YouTube and Spotify, if you're listening to the audio-only version, you can head over to Instagram at Let's Get Haunted to see key images from this week's episode. But basically what I'm looking at is a cutout of an old newspaper. So it's a newspaper clipping, and there's an illustration of what this rock looks like on the left. And then on the right, there's a photo of these two young boys with Beatles haircuts. They look like George Harrison. And then they're holding up this weird rock. And I don't really know how to describe it other than it's just a fucked up face. It's a rock probably about the size of a fist, maybe. And looks like there's little eyes, like divots for eyes carved into the rock. There's a nose carved into it. And there's this weird grin carved into it too. I do not like it. This is dark-sided.
The entire house is dark-sided.
Yeah, so that is the one that they call the witch. And now let me see if I can find a better picture. Okay, here is a black and white photo of the two heads next to each other, if you want to describe those.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at are, again, these two fist-sized, maybe a little bit smaller than fist-sized rocks, and they're being held by what I assume are the boys. And the one on the left looks... I don't know. This is gross. It just looks bad. The rock on the left, I'm so distracted by how evil these look. The rock on the left is like a lighter colored rock. The rock on the right is a darker colored rock. The one on the left looks like maybe the nose got knocked off of it, maybe, and the mouth is more straight, like a straight line. And then the one on the right looks like it's carved out better and has that smirk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, they're creepy. Here's another drawing of them. Now, this story, depending on, like, the sources, it's sort of muddled because, like I said, you have this story start over in England. These kids find these rocks. Weird stuff starts happening. The local news picks up on it, you know? And then, like, the BBC takes off on it. And then they start going and the story starts going even wider and wider, and then they start like doing all this testing on these heads, and at some point the heads are swapped out for like replicas because they don't want the actual artifacts going around, like if they are Celtic heads, you know, it's like they're trying to preserve them, I guess. And so some of the pictures might be the replicas of the heads and some of the pictures are like the actual heads, but this drawing is showing what the actual physical heads exactly looked like.
I hate replicas. I understand why they do it. I get it. You've got to make sure that you got to keep your enemy guessing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want the real version to be stolen. So they make these replicas.
There's enemies?
For sure.
There's enemies of replicas?
If I were
I thought they just did it so it doesn't get broken. You're telling me there's literally people out to steal the originals?
100%. Okay, if I was a dark-sided person and I was reading the newspaper and I saw these heads, I would be like, this is perfect for my potion. I'm going to overthrow the Romanian government and these heads are just what I need. Or on the flip side, if I were like a black market antique dealer, I'd be like, oh, maybe these are Celtic heads. I'm going to go steal them and sell them to the highest bidder, which is an oil baron. It's always an oil baron.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.
The holidays are a time of traditions. Some people have many traditions, and some people are just starting to make their own. And now is a time to reflect on what those traditions mean to you, or whether you would like to rewrite those traditions and start making your own, like perfecting your grandmother's hot chocolate recipe, or letting your kids go ham on some gingerbread house decorating. Incorporating therapy into your holiday traditions can ensure that you take time for yourself during a season that can be incredibly joyful, but can also be a hectic and lonely time of year. Every year, my family goes and picks out a Christmas tree. It's something we look forward to doing every single December 1st. There's goats on the Christmas tree lot. I have watched those goats grow up from kids to goats. You call little goats kids. But I always make sure to do my therapy during the holidays. And no, I'm not talking about getting a facial, although that is a form of self-care. I'm talking about talk therapy. That way I can close the year with clarity instead of chaos. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the US. BetterHelp does the initial matching for you so you can work on your therapy goals. All you have to do is a short questionnaire that helps identify your needs and preferences. And BetterHelp's 12 plus years and industry-leading match fulfillment rate means they typically get it right on the first time. But if you aren't happy with your match, you can switch to a different therapist from their tailored recs anytime. BetterHelp has over 30,000 therapists, which makes them one of the world's largest online therapy platforms. They've served over 5 million people globally, and it works. BetterHelp has an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on 1.7 million client reviews. Basically, that's a lot of people saying they really like BetterHelp and it works. This December, start a new tradition by taking care of you. Our listeners get 10% off at betterhelp.com/gethaunted. That's betterhelp.com/gethaunted. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And now back to getting haunted. So you're going to like this, Aly. Scientists immediately began testing these heads because they're like, first of all, they look like historical artifacts or something. You know, if you just find that buried in your backyard, you're like, this is literally Indiana Jones, you know, like this is suspicious as fuck. So they start testing. In the quiet town of Hexham, rumors spread quickly about the cursed stones. Scientists were called. Celtic experts arrived. The heads were examined, tested, debated. Were they relics of an ancient pagan cult? Protective charms meant to guard a home? Or were they curses meant to trap something else inside? Basically, people were freaking out at this point. So the local news picked it up, right? Like we saw the newspaper clippings. And I guess back in like the 70s or like whenever this happened, the news was just like, I don't know a better word than just lit. You know, like it was, we got the weather report and then there was a crash on this British highway. And now let's take it to the field where these two kids have dug up haunted stones and like the neighbors saw a fucking goat man. And then they'll have like interviews with all of the neighbors being like, yeah, well, they brought the stones in here and ever since they brought them, things have been acting very strange. You know, they're just like very British.
I love it. I wish we had more news stories about haunted stuff. I feel like it's a very underrepresented genre of news story, and I'm sick of it. And I'm ready for the tide to turn, and I hope people start digging up in their backyards looking for more cursed objects. I would absolutely love a change of pace in the news and read about some witchy stuff.
So some of the people who got involved in at this point was Dr. Anne Ross. Now, Dr. Anne Ross is an expert on ancient Celtic stone heads. Literally, that's like what she does. She studies ancient stone Celtic heads. And so they take these heads to the Museum of Antiquities in Newcastle, where she works for further examination. Now, Dr. Anne Ross immediately claims these heads are authentic. They're 1,800 years old. They're connected to a Romano-British shrine, which may have stood somewhere in the area. But here's where things get crazy is like she's a scientist, right? Like she's an expert in the field. she starts saying the shit's fucking haunted. And she's not like just alluding to it being like, yeah, the stones, you know, they carry with them an air of whatever. She's like, these are haunted. I can't have them in my house anymore. This is bad. She said she like right away did not like the heads, that they just gave her bad vibes. And then she said one morning at midnight, she saw a creature that was half man, half wolf slipping out of her bedroom at 2 a.m. Like a werewolf left her bedroom at 2 a.m. And she was horrified by the experience. She was only able to be calmed down when her husband went up and found, quote unquote, no traces of a disturbance and just said, you know what, you had a nightmare. And she was like, okay, yeah, you're probably right. I know a lot about these heads. You know, I've read stuff in the news. I've seen it. So maybe it is just the power of suggestion. Maybe I am just creeped out by them because they're weird and I had a bad dream. But then days later, her teenage daughter reported that she saw the same werewolf man, if you want to call that, alone in the house. And so then Dr. Ann Ross is like, these heads are out. She sends these heads away to somebody else. She's like, someone else is going to deal with this. And she has the whole building exorcised. So she passes the heads on to this guy named Dr. Robbins. And then Dr. Robbins moves the heads around for like tons of analysis of various sources, like over a long time, over the years or whatever. And nobody is really certain of where these heads are now, like today, because there are reports that they actually got buried somewhere else and then were dug back up because there was too much paranormal activity that was occurring in the areas where they were buried. And now we just kind of don't know where they are, which is crazy. Hey guys, it's Nat. I have ADHD, which means during the day, I need more chemicals than the lab at the International Space Station needs for their experiments. Which also means that during the night, I need an equal and opposite reaction. And guess what sometimes happens when you take a bunch of gummies to go to sleep after a day of being on the International Space Station worth of experiments in your brain? A portal is opened and you have crazy dreams. I wake up and there is a presence in my room. This is not a joke. I would chalk it up to the chemicals if it wasn't always at 3 or 3:33 a.m. That is dark-sided and nefarious. And without Miracle Made sheets, I would be waking up in a cold, freezing, sweaty mess. Miracle Made sheets are crafted by NASA-inspired, silver-infused fabric that helps regulate your body temperature, no matter what's in your room. So if you're a hot sleeper or a cold sleeper, doesn't matter. These sheets are going to keep you in the comfort zone all night long. And they stay cleaner longer, thanks to the antibacterial silver technology. Miracle Made sheets stay cleaner and fresher up to 3 times longer than traditional bed sheets. That means fewer odors, fewer wash cycles, and way less laundry. Plus, they're great for your skin because all of that hidden bacteria in traditional bed sheets can clog your pores and cause breakouts. Miracle Made's antibacterial design helps you sleep cleaner and clearer every night. Go to trymiracle.com/haunted to try Miracle Made sheets today. You'll save over 40%, and when you use promo code HAUNTED, you'll get an extra 20% off plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. That's trymiracle.com/haunted, code HAUNTED at checkout. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. Now back to getting haunted. I'm gonna play you this BBC interview that Dr. Ann Ross did in 1976. It was a BBC nationwide report, and she says everything I basically just told you in her own words there. So let's watch that.
This footage from a 1976 BBC current affairs report was only ever shown once on television, but the memory of it has haunted many of those who saw it ever since. It's a nationwide report about a werewolf figure that was associated with 2 Celtic stone heads found by children near Hadrian's Wall, on the border between Scotland and England. The footage lay untouched in the BBC archive for almost 50 years, with its sound believed to have been lost forever. However, thanks to AI voice recognition, much of the original audio has been discovered, recorded at the end of a religious affairs programme from a few weeks later. The stone items, known as the Hexham Heads, were sent to Dr. Ann Ross, a Celtic archaeology expert, who describes how late at night in bed she felt a cold shiver and something made her look towards the door.
And as I looked, I saw this thing going out of it. And it was about 6 feet high, slightly stooping, and it was black, against the white door. And it was half animal and half man. The upper part, I would have said, was a wolf, and the lower part was human. And I would have again said that it was covered with a kind of black, very dark fur. And it went out, and I just saw it clearly, and then it disappeared. And something made me run after it, a thing I wouldn't normally have done, but I felt compelled to run after it. And I got out of bed, and I ran, and I could hear it going down the stairs. And then it disappeared towards the back of the house. And when I got to the bottom of the stairs, I was terrified.
Did you see this thing again?
A few days after I saw it, we had to go up to London, and our teenage daughter had the key and came home from school at about 4, and we got back from London at about 6. And when we opened the door, she came to it, and she looked extremely pale and terribly shaken. Finally, I got it out of her what had happened, and she had opened the front door with a key, and as she opened it, a black thing, which she described as being as near a werewolf's, leapt halfway down the stairs, had jumped over the banisters, and landed with a kind of plop, like padded heavy animal feet. And it had rushed towards the back of the house, and she had felt compelled to follow it. And it disappeared in the music room right at the end of the corridor. And when she got there, it had gone, and then she realized she was terrified. The day that the heads were removed from the house, everybody, including my husband, said, it's as if a cloud had lifted. And since then, there hasn't been really a trace of it.
We saw dozens of Celtic heads in our travels around the country, and none of them would win any prizes in a beauty competition.
Okay.
Those were some intense recreations, shall we say. It was just a lot of screaming and close-ups of severed heads, jump scares, a guy with hair glued to his face to look like a werewolf. It was great. I actually loved it. I loved the camp of it all. I also do want to say that woman's style, amazing. I hope that I look like that when I'm older. I love her. So for those of you who could not see the video, I will describe what she looked like. She had bright blue eyeshadow on. She had a white powdered face. She had bottle red hair, like the bottled red dye that's very, very pigmented. Mm-hmm. And she was just wearing a fabulous blazer and had some gold dangly earrings. And I just loved it. I loved everything about it. And I trust her because I like her style.
Yeah. Yeah, she seemed authentic to me. And
yeah.
I mean, who else would you want in a profession of, I'm literally an expert on Celtic art, Celtic artifacts, ancient artifacts? You want someone who actually believes the shit is it seems like she's a part of it. She's not looking from the outside and this head and this belongs to the Mesopotamia period or what, I don't know, whatever the fuck they're saying, right? She instead is this is a Celtic head, and with it becomes a spirit of a bad man who, you know what I mean? It feels like she is actually a part of what she's talking about. I don't know how to explain it. She doesn't feel like an outsider looking in, if that makes sense.
No, she's an expert on the subject matter. She knows what she's talking about. She probably wrote a PhD thesis on these fucking heads, which is why she is the expert that you go to. And so yeah, she seems credible. I think it was super interesting. I love the recreations, like I said, love the camp of it all. She seems credible. I think it's interesting that her daughter also saw something similar. Um I don't think she mentioned how old her daughter was, but she did say teenaged. So we have to assume 13 to 19 years old. And I guess you could be influenced by your parents into thinking that something's happening that's not. But the fact, if you see a full bodied apparition of some sort, that to me is pretty hard to think that you saw, right? I personally have never seen a full bodied apparition, would love to. Hope they come see me at some point in my lifetime. But I think it would be pretty difficult to mistake seeing a werewolf jumping from the banister onto the ground.
Yeah, I mean, she literally ran after it. That's how real it seemed. Like, get this fucking wolf out of my house, like, you know?
Yeah.
So
And it made a noise.
It did make a noise. She had a lot of ideas about what she thought the heads were. But I guess, like, it's difficult to place stone carvings because the stone is already so old and, like, carvings get worn by time. It's very difficult to date those type of stone carvings. And I didn't know that, but apparently it is. So there was, like, a lot of chatter within, I guess, like, the archaeologist community, the archaeology community, that people disagreeing on what time they were from or whatever. But the heads were very closely analyzed and sampled, but lots of the resulting evidence was quote unquote like in contradiction because so many experts were like, well, you know, you're saying it's 1,000 years older than it is. I actually think it's from this period because it's so difficult to date them. But nonetheless, the discovery was regarded as having immense historical importance and significance. And Dr. Anne Ross actually published multiple collections regarding ancient Celtic artifacts about the heads. And she said that the heads had vague similarities with several Celtic heads of antiquity. So she thought to link those heads into that particular tradition. She published on a bunch of different discovery type paper type things about the heads and how like, oh, this is a crazy discovery because this is actually placing this time period or whatever. Dr. Ross had this theory, and this was kind of like, I guess, the crown jewel of her studies, and it was this thing called the cult of the head. Aly, have you ever heard of the cult of the head?
The cult of the head. No. Is this a new age thing? Is this an ancient thing? Is it a theory?
It's kind of all of that and in between, but I guess you would say a theory probably fits the description most. So there's like this tradition or this widespread belief that the head was the seat of the soul and that the head represented a medium to communicate with the quote unquote other world or whatever. And this was like in Celtic traditions, right? So like they believe that the ancient Celts believed that the head was the most valuable part of the body. Like that's where your soul resided. They thought the head was the vassal of the soul, and they thought it was also like very honorable to collect heads because they were the seat of the soul. And this is backed up. I mean, we have several different examples of different warriors from that time period who would go around collecting heads. For example, there's this classical citation by Diodorus Siculus where he said, quote, The Gauls cut off the heads of enemies slain in battle and attached them to the necks of their horses. The blood-stained spoils they hand over to their attendants and carry off as booty, while striking up paean and singing a song of victory. And they nail up these first fruits upon their houses, just as those who lay low wild animals in certain kinds of hunting. They embalm in cedar oil the heads of the most distinguished enemies and preserve them carefully in a chest and display them with pride to strangers, saying that for this head, one of their ancestors, or his father, or the man himself, refused a large sum of money. They say that some of them boast that they refused the weight of the head in gold. So to paraphrase that, this ancient dude is saying, yeah, the Gauls, I witnessed it. They would go around cutting off the heads of their enemies, and we have evidence of this because there are people today who have trunks full of heads that have been preserved in cedar oil or whatever, and people offer them so much money to have these heads, and they're like, no, I'm not gonna take the money, presumably because the heads are the seat of the soul, and if you take the enemy, your like enemy's soul, there that has like some sort of magical mystical power that comes along with it.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. So it's basically soul collecting. It's not really head collecting. It's like, I hate my enemy so much that I want to possess his very essence, and I want to lock it away so that he can't go on to the next plane. He can no longer do anything. It's like a purgatory almost, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, they really used to just like hate so openly and freely. Like there's something kind of free about that, you know? I personally in my life don't know anyone who is so bothered by someone else that they're like, yeah, I will refuse any sum of money just so that I can have their head to like look at it. You know, I would be like, okay, like, yeah, we talking in how much we talking
weird.
Gold here? Like, you could have whatever you want, sir. You know?
Yeah. If I had a body part of a random person that's not related, like the only thing I can think of is like, I guess if you were a teacher or a professor and you had like cadaver parts that were donated, or a skeleton that you could teach anatomy to your students, but any other reason that someone has a random person's body part, like there's no justification.
Right.
I don't know. I would feel so uncomfortable if I just inherited a chest full of heads. I'd be like, great, let's find a way to cremate these immediately and dispose of the ashes in the way that makes me feel the least haunted. You know what I mean? Or like donate it to a museum, or give it a burial. I don't know, something that doesn't cost a lot of money, because if you inherit heads, that sucks that you've just got to pay money to deal with that bad juju. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you would think, I don't know, I feel like that would just be bad vibes to have your enemies' souls locked in a chest.
I mean, I guess if you hate someone that much, it might be powerful. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've like really hated someone. I can't think of like a time that I've really
I've never hated someone so much that I wanted their soul. Yeah. That is such a foreign idea to me. Like, you know, maybe in your youth you like get cheated on by someone. I'm sure all of us have been cheated on before. It's just so common. And like, you know, for that first year that you're like heartbroken, and then it turns into rage, right? It's like the stages of grief. But never have I been like, I want that man's soul for my own. Yeah. You know, like that's a layer of dark-sided that has never occurred to me before. I'm going to be thinking about this tonight when I can't sleep at 2 a.m. I'm just going to be laying there like, somebody hates somebody so much that they collect their souls.
I have another haunted quote for us to back right up against what Aly's saying that fits so perfectly. This one is from the guy named Strabo. Never heard of him, but he's got one name, so I feel like he's a big deal.
Who the fuck is Strabo?
I don't know, but he was cited as a classical source, and it literally says Strabo. Okay, so he said...
It's like Madonna? Wow.
Quote, "There's also that custom barbarous and exotic, which attends most of the northern tribes. When they depart from the battle, they hang the heads of their enemies from the necks of their horses. And when they have brought them home, they nail the spectacle of the entrance of their houses. At any rate, Posidonius says that he himself saw this spectacle in many places, and that although he first loathed it, afterwards, through his familiarity with it, he could bear it calmly. So he's basically saying, like, you go to people's houses in this part of the world and there's just heads strung up everywhere, like as if you were, you know, go to a home and they've got like deer, fucking, what do you call that? A deer trophy on the wall or whatever mounted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mounted taxidermied animal.
Yeah, it's like they just have human heads.
I mean, we've covered a lot of macabre stuff on this show, and so I do feel a bit desensitized, and there's not a lot that bothers me about hearing about some of the fucked up shit that we as humans have done to each other throughout the years. Like, I mean, I can acknowledge it and be like, that's fucked, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, there's something worse somewhere that's happened. The thing that's getting me is if you really believe that the soul is in the head and then you're collecting the heads, that's what I am having a problem with. It's not, which is strange, perhaps. I'm not so much having a problem with collecting the heads themselves, because I think that we talked about Vlad the Impaler briefly this year on an episode. We've talked about cannibalism in different cultures in past episodes and past seasons. So there's not much that really bothers me in that sense. It's more so like, if you truly believe that you're harvesting someone's soul, that is crazy.
Your soul is mine.
That you're like comfortable keeping those items. Because usually wars or, usually in war, okay, you kill your enemy, and I suppose the idea would be that they can no longer harm you here on Earth, but their soul is at least released to the next realm and can re-enter the reincarnation cycle or be in heaven or whatever you believe, right? But to take their soul, like it wasn't good enough to take their life on Earth, you're now preventing everything else for them. I don't know. For whatever reason, that's getting to me. Maybe I'm just tired.
It's so deep, right? It goes so hard. Okay, so
yeah,
Dr. Ann Ross goes so hard on this. She rides or dies for these heads. She's like, these are haunted. These are authentic. I can place them to this shrine that used to be here. I'm sure they used to be there. She even says that they might have been like on pillars, like placed on top of these pillars to the shrine, like you would walk into the shrine, and so you would pass through these heads. And she places all kinds of weight in this idea of the cult of the head, and it's like, you know, this makes so much sense. And, you know, just the paranormal side of that is that the Celts believed, like we said, that the head was the seat of the soul, and they would taxidermy all these heads and whatever. And so some people think that maybe through magic or through some sort of soul bond experience or something that we can't quite explain with science, what if some of these heads of these enemies or souls were turned into talismans of these rocks? Like, what if the rock's head of the witch and the boy were actually a witch and a boy who they cut their heads off and like turned them into either through magic or just through symbolism, almost like a voodoo doll or something? Like, these heads are now storing the soul of the heads that were cut off. Like, they're a vessel for the soul, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because if you were a soul collector and you have all these heads in a trunk along with the souls, the next step, like to take it one deeper, right, would be, okay, the soul is very powerful. I have all these souls. How can I harness this energy and use it to further my life goals, or to do some magic, or to get more powerful? Because I would assume the more heads you had, the more like badass you were in the community, because look at all these enemies you killed, look at all these souls you have. So if somebody could find a way to take the souls that are inside the heads that you have collected and now put them inside of this portable, tiny, not smelly, not decaying rock, then you could use it. You could take it with you everywhere. Oh, that's diabolical. I kind of love that.
Yeah, so Dr. Ann Ross presents all these ideas of what it may or may not be, you know, and all of them are very haunted, very mystical, very magical because Dr. Ann Ross gets down like that. But after she has these terrifying experiences with the rocks, she's like, you know what? I'm not the gal for this job. Like, I am haunted right now. I'm freaking out. I'm having wolfmen visit me and my family and my daughter. Like, these rocks have got to go. So instead, there's this guy, and he's a skeptic. He is an inorganic chemist. His name is Dr. Robbins. And he's like, you know what? These stones, send them to me. I would love to have this opportunity to look into them more. And he's skeptical. He's like, you know what? You're like being a little bit, what is the word? Hysterical, the word, right? You're being a little hysterical. Give me these. So he collects the heads, he does testing on them or whatever, and he says that the heads have large amounts of quartz in them, and that is what might be, quote unquote, channeling the paranormal activity, if you wanted to go that route. Now, the chemist says he started experiencing very strange activity while he had the heads in his possession. Now, this is the guy who was like, you know what? Give them to me. I don't believe in any of that. He's saying now, oh, maybe these are kind of haunted, because he says when he first put the heads in his car, all of the electronics on his dashboard went dead, just stopped working.
Whoa.
And so he started thinking, hey, maybe it's because they have a lot of quartz in them or something. But I'm like, you're an inorganic, like, chemist, you know? I have quartz stuff, like crystals and whatever. Like, if you put it on your dash, it doesn't make the dashboard go dead. I don't know. Maybe cars were different in the 70s. I have no idea, but I don't know. So then Dr. Robbins starts to think that he's going to get a little haunted. He's like, you know what? Maybe I'm going to get a little haunted. And he starts saying that he's actually thinking that all of the very uncomfortable, like, bad haunted energy is coming from the witch statue. He says that he feels very uncomfortable with the witch. And he says that he feels like the witch's eyes may or may not be watching him. He said one time he came home and he found that the house was, quote unquote, almost electric with a stifling, breathless quality, end quote. That's how he describes the presence of the witch in his house. And that was supposed to be the guy who was like, hey, Celtic rune lady, whatever you are, like, I'm an inorganic chemist. Like, I'm not hooked up with all of that ancient text and stuff, so give them to me. I'm not gonna be so partial to, like, coming up with Indiana Jones scenarios like she is, right? And then he says, oh, actually,
right,
all the electronics in my dash went out, and they have a high amount of quartz in them, and there's a crazy feeling in the air. It's like electric at my house.
That is crazy, because now we have a third person, right? Because, well, actually, no, more than that. We have the original lady whose sons found the heads, experienced that wolf man. Then, or no, that was the next door neighbor experienced the wolf man. Okay, the next door neighbor experienced the wolf man. Then we've got the lady with the fabulous style. Then we've got her teenage daughter. And now we've got this other dude. So that's 4 people, right?
Yeah, 4 people. And then do we also include the boys that dug it up, their family?
Did they experience, can you remind me, did they experience anything?
They did. They put the stones in their house, like on the mantle, and they said that, like, weird sounds started happening, and they started seeing strange...
Oh, that's right. The footsteps.
Stuff. Yeah. And the heads kind of seemed to, like, turn towards where the sounds were coming from. So, like, if the wall was creaking, the heads would be looking at the wall.
be peeking. If the walls are creaking, the heads be peeking. Yeah. So that's 7, because that's 3 people, right, that lived in that house?
Yeah, I guess that's 7 people.
The 2 boys and the mom? So that's 7. Yeah. All right. Could be power of suggestion. It could be someone just having a placebo effect of like they want it to be haunted so they feel like it's haunted. 2, all right. Maybe it's isolated to the same family. Maybe they all share the same belief system. All right. So like maybe we can give 3 a pass, but we're at 7 now.
7.
I'm fully on team haunted. There's something wrong with these heads.
So, like I said before, after Dr. Ann Ross sends them away to this inorganic chemist, Dr. Robbins, he is like, actually, they're haunted. And they start going to all these other people, and then they make like recreations of them. And then people say they're so haunted, we have to bury them. We have to put them back from where we got them. And then other people are like, no, it's too haunted. And we just kind of like lost them. Now we don't know where they are. To this day, no one knows where the Hexham Heads are. Some say that they were stolen. Other people say that they were buried so deep that no child would ever dig them up again. But the locals say that sometimes on quiet nights, you can still hear the sound of stone rolling across a wooden floor with a low growl from the dark corner of the room. And that's in Hexham. That's like the legend, is that what you can hear. Now, I want to talk about some of the, I guess we could call them theories. We got to talk about the Hexham wolf, because this isn't just like a random beastman wolf thing. I guess there have been sightings of strange wolf creatures in Hexham since 1904. There was this thing called the Hexham wolf in 1904. Now, this wolf went and caused a bunch of trouble, and people attributed the wolf to being an escaped wolf from the nearby zoo, because this wolf was like killing a bunch of livestock in the area. And then apparently one day they saw on the train track that there was a wolf that had been hit by the train, a lone wolf, and had died. And then the livestock stopped getting eaten, I guess. And so people think that maybe that was what was eating the livestock, was like this escaped wolf from the zoo that got hit by a train. But that's not really matching up with those stories of like, hey, this wolf man was in the corner of my room salivating. Yeah. And are we to believe that this wolf is now like 120 years old or whatever, because he was like in 1904 hitting the livestock, Yeah.
Yeah. And also, okay, how did the wolf get into the house and how did the wolf leave the house? When a wild animal breaks into your house, wild or domesticated, I had a cat break into my house once, and there's evidence, okay? It's not like you just see the animal in your house and then it is gone and you're like, whoa, how'd that happen? You can always figure out how it's happening. I know people I remember in college, one of my friends had a squirrel break into her dorm room, and it was wreaking all kinds of havoc. It ended up it was really sad. It was in there for like a week. Okay, so she was living with this squirrel in a tiny dorm room. The RA would come in every day. Maintenance people would come in every day, and they were trying to catch this squirrel, and they could not figure it out. But there was evidence, is my point. Like, you could see where it got in through the window, and you could find droppings, and you could find scratch marks, and eventually, sadly, it somehow injured itself, and it was like bleeding all over her room before they eventually caught it. So my point is, if you had a real wolf escaped from the zoo that broke into these people's houses and they were somehow hallucinating, mistaking it for a wolf man or a werewolf, there would still be evidence. The thing that is making it paranormal is that there's no way, they don't understand how it got in, they don't understand how it left, and there seems to be no real evidence other than maybe wet footprints. But I'm like, okay, but I need more info on that. Were they man footprints? Were they wolf footprints? Why was it wet? Was there soil? Did it disappear? Did they have to clean it?
Yeah, I mean, there's more questions than there are answers to this episode. And it's kind of crazy because there was so much media on this, right? Like, there was newspapers and the BBC did interviews, and you had fucking Dr. Ann Ross, who's like a published expert with a PhD in the subject, publishing papers and ideas and books on the subject of this cult of the head and using the Hexham Heads as evidence in her research and citing it. And you have other scientists coming in, people, you know, doing dating, scientists arguing about when the heads are from or whatever. Nobody is saying, hey, we think it's a hoax. Everyone is just trying to figure out where to place them in history, you know? So
right.
There's so much evidence that remains of the heads, but then for whatever reason, maybe because it was kind of taboo, maybe because there was like quote unquote haunting attached to the heads, they started just kind of like falling out of the public eye. Like maybe in the scientific community, they were like, this is too haunted, I don't want to touch it. Let's just like bury these things and be done with it, you know? No one's going to miss them. No one's going to care about them. Or maybe they were just like, you know what? I think that they're just some heads and there's really nothing else to say about that because we don't know where time to put them in. We can't like date them perfectly. So we don't want to say, oh, we discovered this, you know, new thing when we're actually placing it in the wrong time period anyways. But I'm going to show you some pictures of some of the Celtic heads from antiquity. These are called the Janus figures, and they are in Caldra Graveyard, which is in the UK, and they are dated from 400 to 800 AD. And they're kind of, they don't look like the Hexham Heads. Like, these look more like,
no.
Yeah, they look like that emoji of like the Easter Island head or whatever, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, to me, these look more like fancy headstones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you go to the cemetery and some people have headstones that are carved into different shapes, like a person or a dog or whatever the case may be. These look like fancy headstones. They are literally shaped like a stereotypical headstone, you know, like the cartoon version where it's curved at the top and it goes into the ground. But there are these faces carved into them, and they're very rudimentary. They're not as 3D, I would say, as the Hexham Heads were. Mm-hmm. The Hexham Heads were very small. They could fit in the palm of your hand, and they had gouges for eyes and a mouth that was gouged and almost like a 3D looking nose, whereas these ones kind of just seem like somebody took a chisel and did the outline of eyes and the outline of a nose and the beginning of a mouth. The one on the far end looks like it might be more developed than the one closest, and maybe that's just like the wear and tear over the years since these are so old. But yeah, these definitely don't look like the Hexham Heads to me.
No, I have to agree with you on that. This is, this should have gone earlier in the episode, but whatever. This is a newspaper clipping from January 13th, 1974, where it says, Myth of the Evil Heads, and it has a picture of the Hexham Heads, and it says, ancient or modern? The two heads that have caused all the controversy. And then I'll read like a small snippet of the article. It says, who knows best about the two mysterious ornamental heads dug up in Tyneside Garden? The eminent Celtic scholar and archaeologist, ? Or the bluff Geordie building site worker? ? The archaeologist, Dr. Ann Ross, says they were carved from local Northumberland stone, perhaps during the Roman British period, about 1,800 years ago. But the laborer, Diamond Craggle, claims they're made of sand and that he turned them out in his lunch break a mere 18 years ago. Dr. Ross of...
Wait, this guy's saying he carved them?
I guess so. Dr. Ross of Southampton University tells of her findings in a children's educational book called Folklore, Myths, and Legends, and she describes mysterious spirits and apparitions that appeared when the heads were sent to her by a Newcastle museum for examination. Anyways, should I go on? I'm kind of interested now. Let's go on, guys. At his home in Prior Terrace, Hexham, 20 miles from Newcastle, Desmond Craigle, it's Desmond Craigle, not Diamond Craigle. Guys, sorry, this is an old newspaper, I can't really see here. Desmond Craigle told me, The lady's got it wrong. I made the heads for my daughter 18 years ago to show her what sort of work I did. Mr. Craggle said he was working for a firm that made artificial stone blocks. I simply scooped up 2 handfuls of the stuff as if I were making a snowball. I molded the mixture into 2 balls, and with a knife I carved eyes, ears, a nose, and a mouth. Then I shaped the rough necks so that the finished heads could stand on a shelf. It only took a few minutes. The next day, the heads hardened and I took them home. The Craggles displayed the heads in the window of their old home in Red Ear, Hexham. At no time the family say that anything mysterious happened in the home, although Miss Nellie Dodd, who once lived nearby, tells of a mysterious creature touching both her and her son Brian one night in their own home. When the Craggles moved to their present address, the heads were left behind. Later, the 2 heads sent up to Dr. Ross were dug up in the Craggles' old garden. At her home in Ross Road, Southampton, Dr. Ross, 46, admitted, "I may well made a mistake in dating these heads. That's why I haven't dated them in the new book I'm working on. But a special tetralogical examination method showed that they couldn't have been molded. These heads are extremely evil. Whatever age they are, they have attracted some medieval power. Perhaps they were buried on the site of a Celtic memorial. As soon as they left my house, the creatures I described in the children's book disappeared. I would like to meet Dr. Craggle and see him make another head." That was fascinating.
Wow.
I don't know what to think now.
Craggle is saying, Craggle is saying that he made these heads by picking up some sort of material he was working with, molding it into a snowball, and then cutting with a knife or maybe using his finger when the material was still soft to like create these faces, and then put them in a kiln or something. Or he says it came back the next day and it was hard. I need to know more information about what his job was and what material he says
Making evil heads.
it is. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's interesting. But it seems like it should be easy to prove or disprove that. And she's saying, no, I did some sort of testing and I can tell that this is a rock and not whatever sand material he says it was. But now that the heads have disappeared, we're never going to know the truth. So I see why this story was selected by the listener that recommended it, because it's truly something that's going to be unsolved forever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I just wonder too, it's like some of the sources say that like the replica heads were made that were molded of whatever material, and so that article may have been that guy saying, no, actually I made the replicas of the heads.
Oh.
But I'm not sure.
Also, the thing missing from his story is, okay, you had these heads displayed in your window. How did they end up buried in somebody's backyard to then uncover?
I mean, was it just too British? Like, and we couldn't understand it? Hold on, what does it say here? I made the heads for my daughters 18 years ago. I was working for a firm. I scooped up, I molded the mixture, blah, blah, blah. The next day I took the heads home. They hardened them. They were in the window of their old Hexham home. At the time, they said nothing mysterious happened, but next door, Nellie Dodd said there was a mysterious creature. That when they moved to their present address, the heads were left behind. Later, the 2 heads sent to Dr. Ross were dug up in the Craggles' old garden. Yeah, you're right. It's weird. It's like, are we talking about...
How'd they end up in your garden?
Yeah. That's what I mean. Is this a smear campaign? Because this guy who was uninformed of like what the interview was going to be about they just took some quotes from him where he was like, yeah, I made these replica heads. That's what I do, is like, we had some new building material and I carved the heads. And that's what I do, and they were like, oh, so you're saying they're fake. And he didn't really realize, like, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Or like, did this guy just want to, I don't know. It could be an innocent mistake. Maybe he did make some weird heads and then he saw this in the newspaper and it's been so many years later that he's like, oh, I think those are the heads I molded. But his story would be more believable to me if he was like, oh, when we moved, we decided to bury these heads in the garden and we didn't think anything of it again. And, then I guess they got uncovered, because the piece missing for me is he says, okay, we had them displayed in our windowsill, then we moved and left them behind. But how did they end up buried deep in the backyard?
It's a tale as old
Unless
as
you
time.
think the boys are lying. Yeah, unless you think the little boys are lying and they found the heads in the house. And they were like, oh, we're going to say that we uncovered them. Have these little boys ever done any interviews as adults? Do we know?
No, those vile little children.
They should still be alive.
They should be. They died
Shouldn't
tragically.
they should still be alive. What?
No, I don't know. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
Oh.
But
Okay.
I was curious because, they say this house in Hexham or whatever was super haunted. And so I looked up the address, 3 Reed Avenue, and it's for sale. And it's only, I don't know if this is like a lot or a little for this area, but it's only like £100,000, which I feel like is not a lot for a house in this day and age.
That's so
right?
cheap.
But it's in pounds, so it'd still be like even if it was 200,000, that's still not a whole lot for a house.
That's so cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we're just jaded because I'm in Southern California,
And I'm in Atlanta,
which is one of the most expensive places on earth. Yeah. Yeah. But that doesn't, for a house with a yard,
Yeah.
like that seems like quite the deal.
Here's 2 more heads to just show you like more of the cult of the head idea. This is a stone sculpture of a Celtic hero from 150 to 50 BC. And then this head is very scary. It's called the 3-faced Corlick head, and it's Irish, and it's from the 1st century AD. And I feel like this one, the 3-faced Corlick head, looks most like the Hexham Heads.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of cute. It reminds me of a Shel Silverstein drawing.
Oh, really?
Like he had those little doodles in his books, and they were always very rudimentary. The previous one, go back to the previous one.
Okay. Hold on.
Go back.
That one looks like Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, that's
or
Colonel
something.
Sanders.
Yeah, Colonel Sandler. You're right, it is Colonel Sanders. Oh my god.
Yeah.
No.
But I see what you're saying. Cogsworth, too.
Yeah.
It could be Cogsworth from Beauty and the Beast. Maybe if Colonel Sanders and Cogsworth had a baby, that's what it would be.
I'm going to show you this house is for sale.
How many beds and baths is
2
it?
bedrooms, 1 bathroom.
Oh, it does look smaller than I pictured. Is there any more photos, or is that the only one on the listing?
No, here's
There we
some
go.
photos.
Okay. Well,
I don't know. Maybe we all need to move to this area because they've got a yard. They got 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and
yeah, that's a nice yard.
yeah, it's a good yard. I mean, the house is like needs some repairs and some updates, obviously.
For sure.
Yeah, it needs a major facelift, but
Wow.
it's still a house. But I guess look, other ones in the area. This one sold for $154,000. This one sold for £85,000, £195,000. So maybe this part of
God, that's so cheap.
yeah, this part of the world hasn't been affected yet by inflation. I guess that's the most haunted part of the whole episode. We found a place where inflation doesn't exist. They're still living in 1970 over there, guys.
Wow.
So that's my episode.
Wow.
I want to talk about
I loved
some of
it.
the theories for a second, but not that long because I find theories to be boring. But the first theory is the skeptic theory, and the skeptic theory is that it's sexism. I have to mention this because someone's going to comment it and rage bait me. People are like, this is just sexism because you can't gender a rock's face. How do we know it's a witch? And that's actually just sexism because somehow one head's female and that is also somehow an evil hag, And I'm like, look, some bitches are evil hags. I'm sorry. That rock was giving evil hag.
Also, the person that carved it is the fucked up person in this story because in order for us to follow the cult of the head theory, you have to believe that somebody chopped off a witch's head, kept the head, transferred the soul into this abomination of a rock that they carved, and then they were using that witch's soul inside the rock for some unknown occult purpose. So the real fucked up person is the person that cut off the witch's head, not the witch. Boom.
Now, the second...
Dismantled the skeptic theory.
Love that. Aly, doing the Lord's work over here. The second theory is witchcraft, okay? We're talking about Dr. Ann Ross. You know, she seemed like she knew what she was talking about. And this is something crazy. So I guess according to Wikipedia, quote, there are numerous insular Celtic myths in which severed but living heads preside over feasts and or speak prophecies. Medieval Irish legends recount severed heads returning to life when placed on standing stones or pillars. This has led to speculation as to the existence of the Celtic head cult, where decapitated human skulls have been found at several sites, Iron Age sites associated with rituals and sacrifice, such as those at Lownshade County, whatever. Then there's like a bunch of things. But my point is that severed heads coming back to life. Ooh, spooky. Wow, Nat. We're spooked. Oh, okay.
I love that. Look, the Irish can do no wrong in my eyes. I just really like everything they're about that I know about them. So I feel like that's really cool. Now I'm back on board. Now I'm like, all right, chop off people's heads. If you can put them on a pillar and have them speak prophecies afterwards, I'm back on board. The only thing I was not on board with was harvesting souls, because that seems very dark-sided to me. Like, give people a chance to enter the reincarnation cycle. And that's just my own baggage. If you've listened to our show for long enough, you know that I'm terrified of death. I don't want to die, and I know nobody wants to die, but it sends me into a spiral, an existential spiral. Every time I think about it, it freaks me the fuck out. Everything I'm doing in my life is trying to not die. So the idea that not only could you die, but then somebody's preventing your soul from living again in the reincarnation cycle and re-entering in a new body, that is evil to me. But chopping off a head to put it on a pillar and speak prophecies, I'm back in. I'm back in, baby.
Well, there we have... Well, let me give you my last theory. The last theory... I don't really get it. It's creature manifestation. Some people think that perhaps the werewolf-like figure might have been a folkloric variant of a haunting that was triggered by the horrific associations built around the heads and perhaps the old local wolf legend.
Okay. So in that theory, maybe it could be like a poltergeist energy, because I believe a poltergeist is not an entity in and of itself. Like, it doesn't have thoughts and feelings. It's just all the bad vibes occurring in a place coming together and causing things to happen. So maybe what it's saying is like all the fear and trepidation surrounding the heads and the bad vibes and all the like the fear it caused and chaos it caused was creating a phenomenon that mimicked the local legends of the area.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that too. I love a good poltergeist. I love a good bad energy story. It also is reminding me of the Beast of Bray Road in Wisconsin that we've covered in a past episode, where maybe there really is. Maybe the two things are unrelated. Like, maybe the Hexham Heads are just a red herring for whatever creature is haunting this town.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that it got me kind of thinking about is, okay, let's say we do go with the skeptic theory, right? That, like, these are just molded toys. Well, then why did the phenomenon only stop when the toys were out of the house, right? It's because they have some sort of influence on people, whether or not they actually were ancient. They were still haunted. And so then it started getting me thinking, like, what ordinary objects in our everyday lives do we have that have some sort of maybe minute influence on us, but it is an influence. And maybe, you know, some influences are positive, maybe some are negative, maybe some are haunted, right? Like I see my little mole plushie on my microphone, and every time I see him, he makes me feel like a little like ooh woo joy or whatever. But maybe there's something that has like the opposite of that effect in my life that I'm not even like thinking about it. Like, ew, that water bottle is like so ugly. I never use that one. Is that like haunting me? Is that because it's haunted? Am I making sense?
Yeah, my favorite object, as you were talking, I was thinking of my favorite everyday object that I have in my house, and it's a spoon. I have a favorite spoon. It's got a really long handle. It's actually a sundae spoon, and I don't eat sundaes, but I use it all the time for anything. I just like it. It's small.
Comfort spoon.
You don't have to pick up too much food with it. It's my comfort spoon. Yeah, so maybe me loving that spoon and preferring that spoon is causing it to be like a magical talisman for me. And maybe if I just started carrying that spoon around in my bag, I would start to have good luck. And then I'm trying to think of what is an object that just like really pisses me off when I see it. And I'm having a harder time coming up with that.
I know, me too. Because usually I just get rid of stuff if
Yeah.
I don't like it. Oh, I know one.
Right.
Oh my God. The stupid fucking orange foam roller. It's this orange foam roller that my husband's always rolling his fucking muscles out on, and somehow it's everywhere. I don't know how. Like a million times I've found a place for it, like in this room where I bought like this special equestrian trunk. It's huge to put all of his stupid ugly gym shit in, like the fucking pants that blow up, recovery pants, all the stuff, to put all that shit in it, where I thought it was cute because I was like, oh, now I'm taking power of the situation. You're putting your fugly recovery shit in my pretty vintage equestrian box, so I just see the box. But sometimes a lot of the times, he doesn't put the stupid foam roller in it, and it drives me crazy. Like, it triggers me so much that I feel like doing vindictive, petty shit, like just being until it's put away, like, oh, can you get me a glass of water? Actually, no, I'm busy, because the foam roller's out. And so, yeah, I'm getting haunted by that.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I can now having that is jogging my memory. Yeah, it would definitely be two objects in the house that I don't like are my boyfriends, and it's fine. I try to accept it, but every time I see them, it does irk me. One of them is he has this plastic lobster, and I don't know what the backstory is, and I don't care to know what the backstory is. I just know it's ugly and it creeps me out. It's not, and I love kitschy things, but this is just like a plastic life-size lobster. Again, don't care to know the backstory. I'm sure
Like a
he's told me and I've just eyes
lobster.
glaze over. Yeah. Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it so much. And he tried, when we first moved in together, he tried to put it in the living room because I guess it was in the living room at his old place that he shared with like 4 other guys. And so they didn't give a fuck. And I was like, what is this? He's like, oh, it's my lobster, whatever. And I was like, no, this is going in your office. I hate it so much. And so that one is in the office. Then he also has this really tacky silver triceratops that's like hollowed out, and he puts like coins in it. And I tried to have that one be in his office too because I hate it so much. But he was like, no, it's not fair. And then I started feeling bad and I was like, okay, whatever. You can have it on the coffee table, but I hate it. So it's still on the coffee table. So yeah, maybe those two objects are, he hates all of my decorations.
Yeah.
I hate all of his decorations. We just have opposite styles. And so I'm begrudgingly allowing the triceratops to live on my very cute wooden cottagecore, like it looks like a wheelbarrow, but it's a coffee table, and I've had it since like 2014, and I will not give it up. It's so impractical. He's like, I fucking hate this coffee table because it has wheels because it's mimicking a wheelbarrow, but you can't actually like move it because it's decorative, and so he'll just like hit his leg against the wheel every time he's trying to sit on the couch, and then the whole table like, so that's his negative object is probably that coffee table, and mine is the triceratops, the hollowed out triceratops that has coins in it.
Yeah, you guys, hauntings.
They're definitely haunted. Yeah, that's definitely, both of those are negative. Talisman. But then that begets the question, maybe those Hexham Heads were lucky for someone else because they didn't think they were tacky and ugly and creepy. In the same way that my boyfriend doesn't think his hollowed out Triceratops is tacky and ugly and creepy. You know, that's probably his good luck charm. But for me, it's like evil. So yeah, I mean, who is to say whether or not the Hexham Heads were good or bad? Maybe the werewolf man is good. Maybe the werewolf man is showing up places that he needs to be so that the space-time continuum doesn't rip in half. You know, like maybe this is actually like a really big chore for him that he has to show up and lurk in people's homes and leave wet footprints.
Yeah, I'm getting all kinds of ideas. I'm like, I'm getting ideas. This is making me excited for the werewolf furry novel
Mask
I will write.
to come back out.
What if I wrote a paranormal, oh my god, a paranormal romantasy about the Hexham Heads, and it was just like,
you should.
Yeah, but like how do you have a romantic scene with those ball of stones?
Because the heads are cucks and they like to watch. They sit on the mantelpiece and they watch the owners of the home, whoever the new owner is, and that's the romantasy.
God, that's so hot. How did you think of that? You guys, we have to do it, Aly.
Wow.
That needs to be our first book that we publish. It should just be very short. You know, we'll narrate it with our voices, like fucking 10 minutes long about these cuck Hexham Heads.
I would support that. Guys, if you would read, you know what we could do? We could just do, oh my God, it would be so bad. Yeah, we can do like you write a chapter and then I write a chapter, but it's the same story. It's like popcorn, you know what I mean? So like you start off the story of the cuck Hexham Heads and then I do the next chapter and then you do the chapter after that until eventually we have a full paranormal romantasy book.
Oh wow.
And we put it for sale on Amazon.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
What would our pen name be? Because we couldn't say that it was two people. I feel like it has to be something Craggle. You know, like Craggle. That guy's name, Diamond Craggle or whatever.
You wouldn't just say that. It wouldn't just be your and my name, like associated with the podcast.
No. Our fans would know, but I feel like we'd have to invent a persona.
Bingus?
You know, like someone with horned rim glasses that
Professor,
you know,
Professor Bingus.
Yeah, Professor Rockhard.
Oh, Professor Rockhard.
We'll keep workshopping
like
it.
WROCKERD. Rockhard.
Whoa.
But you say it with an English accent because we're English. Professor Rockhard.
Yep. That was an excellent story, Natalia. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I think that is a very cool story. I love it. I love that there's no resolution. Sometimes the stories without resolution are really frustrating to me, but this is not one of those. I think it's better that it's unsolved. It's just a fun, good old-fashioned story of some cursed objects being discovered by children. And those are some of the best.
Aly, would you like to do our sign-off?
Yes. BRB, gotta go buy an entire house for only £80,000. Bye.
Hey guys, it's Nat. Welcome to the closing credits for episode 244, The Hexham Heads. This month, we would love to give a warm thank you to all of our patrons who donated to us in the month of October 2025, aka spooky season. Letters H through M. If you would like to become a donor and hear your name shouted out on a future episode of LGH, head over to patreon.com/c/Let's Get Haunted, where you're going to find not only the opportunity to get a shout out, but you're also going to get access to so much more extras, mini-sodes, personal hauntings, live streams, So many things, we can't even talk about it all here. There's no time to explain, as you know. This week, we'd like to thank Haley C., Hollier L., Hasbro Ouija Board, Haley G., Hexylvania S., Hugo A., Hunter C., Hunter S., Ileana RN, Inky Pop Art, I Pet Zombies, Isabel L., Isabella, It's Kelsifer, Ivan L., Jackie L., Jacob, JDKP, Jamit, Jamie F., Jasmine B., Jasmine C., Jason G., JM, Jamie L., Jelly D., Jen M., Jennifer C., Jennifer W., Jenny B., Jenny Squiddy, Jesselyn, Joaquin E., Jocelyn, John H., Jordan L., Jose P., Julia C., Julia M., Julie C., Juliet H., Justin M. C., Justine D., Kate M., Carden 47, Karen H., Karen K., Karina C., Carly K., Carly M., Kat and Alice the Malice, Katie Cat, K to the Win, Kayla M., Kelsey K., Kelsey E., Kelsey L., Kelspiracy, Kendra, Kimberly F., Kindred and Amber, Kirsten C., Kittenish Kate, Kitten Perito, Corky M., Corey with a K, Christy B., Kristen K., Kylie K., Lacey M., Lauren the Lauren, Lauren B., Lauren B., Lori, ID Bug 979, Leah R 1991, Leanna BC, Lena, Lex L, Lexi Norway, Lexitronic, Lil Dilda, Lily B, Lily B, Lindsay S, Lisa B, Lisa H, Lisa H, Lisa ML, Lisa R, Liz K, Luxury Guinea Pigs, Macklehorn, Madnej, Madeline, Maddie P, Madison E, Mads, Maggie Bobaggy, Maha L, McKenna P, Mandy, Manny, Maria O, Mariana Cosplays, Marcella A, Marina W, Mario A, Maris G, Marissa G, Marquez C, Marissa Jenna M, Marty F, Mateo NL, Matthew L, Matthew M, Maddie Joe, Max M, Mason G, Meg, Meg R, Mega Lantern, Megan M, Megan N, Mega Red, Megan D, Melissa B, Melissa G, Melissa H, Mellow 82, Mercy DM, Metal Pineapple, Miami Cat Mom, Michael, Michael B, Michael S, Michael T, Michael B, Michelle B, Mike S, Mikey BDX7, Minnie W, Molly, Monica H, Monica R, Morgan D, Mother of Frogs, My Unicorn Farts Rainbows, aka Jose P. Thank you guys so much for donating. We cannot do this podcast without your help. All of the stuff you see in the studio on the screen was paid for by the donations from our patrons. We're talking about soundproofing here, guys. This is also the studio where we sell our merch from too. So if you buy some merch from us or you donate to our Patreon, it all happens right here, guys. My mic, bought by patrons, okay? That sign back there, bought by patrons, okay? So we want to thank you guys so much for supporting us. And if you would like to sign up for Patreon, you can open up those show notes and support us that way. If you want to support us, but you don't have the money to sign up for Patreon, the best way to support us is to tell a friend about Let's Get Haunted, share the podcast, comment on the podcast, tell people in your life about the podcast. Do it. Okay, the secret password for this episode is gotta be Beast Man. Beast Man. Comment Beast Man in our Spotify comments and or on Instagram, and you will be entered into a raffle. Now, if you comment on both the Instagram photo dump and the Spotify comments, you're going to be entered in 2 times, you guys. So make sure you're hitting those. Get to commenting that secret password, Beast Man. This is Nat out. I'll see you next week. Bye.